A big meeting tonight on family separations at the border. President Trump and Republicans try to reach a deal to end the policy. Plus, the first poll in the race for governor shows one candidate with a big lead and many voters still undecided.
And all of a sudden you have these empty storefronts, which kind of sends a message of there's nothing here for you.
It's a story of the haves and the have-nots. While some San Diego malls are struggling, others are reinventing themselves.
It wasn't until Juneteenth, 1865, that the Union Army got to Texas and liberated the slaves.
Plus, how the history of Juneteenth is being remembered in San Diego. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebone Monet. President Trump is meeting with Republicans in Congress tonight. Lawmakers from his own party are now calling for an end to the forced family separation policy at the border. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says votes could begin later this week. The Senate plan would keep families together while they're detained. No other details have been announced. President Trump has said he wants funding for a border wall to be part of any package that ends the separation policy. He spoke about the practice earlier today.
And they violate the law. People that come in violate the law. They endanger their children in the process. And frankly, they endanger all of our children. You see what happens with MS-13, where your sons and daughters are attacked violently? I don't want judges, I want border security.
The United States has warmed by an average of 1.6 degrees over the past 30 years. It might not sound like much, but it can lead to a big change in the Earth's climate. AP reporter Peter Banda shows us how it's impacting places like Colorado.
Salida, Colorado, a picturesque town in the heart of the Rocky Mountains.
When I was a kid, it was really nice weather here, really nice.
Paul Linza has lived in Salida all his life, but the 86-year-old has seen his hometown change. The winters have become drier, and he has to water his lawn more often.
Well, it changed quite a bit because we didn't get no moisture and everything. It just changed all of a sudden.
Bill Maddox used to install only a few air conditioners a year when he started out several years ago. Now,
I probably won't get to all the air conditioning jobs. I mean, and we typically do have a list. I mean, it's probably already at 10 or 15 people this year.
They may not seem like big changes, but they have widespread implications. According to NOAA, the temperature in the U.S. has gone up nearly 1.6 degrees in the last 30 years. The warming planet is just part of the dire predictions made by a NASA scientist in 1988. That's when James Hansen testified before Congress that global warming was already here and worsening. He warned that the greenhouse effect had been detected and was affecting the climate. An AP analysis shows some cities have seen an even greater increase than the Salida area's 1.9 degrees warming since 1988. The yearly average temperature in Atlantic City rose 2.9 degrees, and Des Moines, Iowa warmed by 3.3 degrees.
The science was right, and yet we haven't taken advantage of our scientific understanding to make policies that are effective.
The impact of climate change has been sweeping, from melting Arctic ice to rising sea level. There's more extreme weather, flood-inducing downpours, extended droughts, heat waves, and bitter cold. Hansen left NASA in 2013 and is now an advocate for policies to control fossil fuel emissions.
We can't afford to go through another cycle like that, where young people assume that the political leaders are going to address the problem.
Mike Sagaski has battled the effects of climate change. The veteran firefighter who lives in Salida remembers a time when a 10,000-acre fire was considered huge.
Boom, all of a sudden we're starting to get larger fires. And now we're up over 100,000 easy. You know, you kind of keep saying, how can they get much worse? But they do.
The hotter world a scientist predicted 30 years ago, now an everyday reality. Peter Banda, Associated Press, Salida, Colorado.
Hopefully you had a great day today. The weather was pretty nice for everyone here across San Diego County. Let's take a glimpse here at the radar. Nothing is going on. It is awfully dry, and that's really the case for all of California and also the Southwest. It is really heating up and also staying nice and dry. For tonight, 64 degrees for the temperature with those clouds increasing. Of course, they'll be there when you wake up, and then by the afternoon, we'll have more sunshine again. Of course, that's all along the coast here. Chula Vista at 62 tonight, Oceanside dipping down to 60, Borrego Springs 73, and Mount Laguna in the 50s for their lows. Now tomorrow we have a high pressure system moving into place right over Southern California. That's going to create some very hot and dry conditions, especially for the deserts. It's going to be above average. Meanwhile, along the coast to the north of us, really, we do have this cooler breeze coming on in, so things are going to be feeling very comfortable along the coast while those interior areas are cooking. So here we are in Oceanside, 78 degrees with sunshine tomorrow. San Diego nice and bright at 77, and Chula Vista at 79 degrees. But look at those interior regions. Yikes, 92 in Ramona. Borrego Springs at 109, and even Mount Laguna reaching 82 degrees. It's going to stay hot pretty much all week. This is the late week outlook, and it is still awfully dry and hot all across the Southwest. So on Wednesday, we'll be at 78 degrees, and then by the weekend, it's looking good. A bit cooler on Sunday. Look at that. We go from 78 on Saturday and then 76 on Sunday. In the interior areas, Wednesday, 84. A bit warmer by Friday, and then a nice cool down by Sunday in the low 80s. And on Wednesday, it will be 82 degrees and sunny. Very nice conditions. And by Sunday, we dip down to the 70s in the mountains and in the deserts. Well, it is just hot. It's going to stay in the triple digits every single day. The hottest day of the week, that's going to be Friday, dangerously hot at 112 degrees. Make sure you're staying hydrated out there and also limit your outdoor activities. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra. Ebony, back to you.
President Donald Trump is threatening China with another round of tariffs, this time up to $200 billion of goods imported to the U.S. The escalation has had an impact on stocks today. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell nearly 300 points. All gains for the year have been wiped out in recent weeks. Stocks that do a lot of business in China, like San Diego-based Qualcomm, dropped about 1%. Department stores have been struggling to keep up with the changing habits of American shoppers. And as they close stores, the malls that once housed them are affected too. In tonight's New Economy Report, KPBS producer Nico Wills looks at two San Diego shopping centers to see what's working and what's not.
Deserted corridors, empty stairways, and shuttered storefronts. This isn't an abandoned property in the middle of nowhere. This is downtown San Diego and what's left of Horton Plaza. The mall and the surrounding area have had a reversal of fortunes in recent years. When Horton Plaza was sparkly and new in 1985, the Gaslamp District was considered sketchy.
The 80s, a couple years after it opened.
Roger Scholey covered San Diego growth and development for the Union Tribune for decades. He says that perception factored into the mall's design.
The way it was designed in 85 was it was sort of a fortress, mainly because the property around it, the blocks around that, were not all that safe at the time. It was designed that way as limited access. Now that's a disadvantage to Horton Plaza.
One of San Diego's biggest events is just a few weeks away. And this year, people who attend Comic-Con will see fewer cars outside the convention center. The city will close Harbor Drive to traffic between Park Boulevard and First Avenue. That covers the entire length of the convention center. Shuttle buses will still be allowed access. The traffic closures will begin with Comic-Con preview night on July 18th. There's a new addition to the U.S. Navy's presence in San Diego. The USS Manchester arrived today. It was built in Alabama, but San Diego will be its home port. The USS Manchester is among the Navy's smaller combat ships and will be used in training missions to detect mines at sea. California might create some new barriers to selling alcohol and marijuana in the same business. Lawmakers are considering a bill that would prevent a business owner from having a license to sell both at the same location. Alcoholic drinks infused with cannabis would also be banned.
They're not yet to the point of the research where they can say always invariably you have this much marijuana in your system, the leveraging effect is X, so they don't put a number on it. But marijuana in the system does affect and amplify alcohol's effects on the human physiology.
The bill would also ban the sale of marijuana at bars. San Diegans will soon have another place to legally purchase marijuana. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the city council approved a new dispensary on Monday.
The dispensary in Sorrento Valley was not approved without a fight. The project, which will occupy a former credit union branch, faced multiple delays. It also attracted opposition from both anti-marijuana activists and rivals in the cannabis industry, who profit from limited competition. But entrepreneur Belinda Smith says cannabis consumers deserve choices.
The more players that we have that are going to be compliant with the industry laws, the state laws, and the more choices we offer consumers, I think the healthier it is overall.
Monday's approval brings the number of permits for cannabis dispensaries in San Diego to 19, though some of those have not yet opened up shop. Smith says after some improvements to her building's interior, she hopes to start business in September. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Today is an American holiday often overlooked, but Juneteenth, or African American Independence Day, is as significant to our history as the 4th of July. KPBS reporter Jade Hindman steps into the African American Museum to take us through this part of history.
San Diego's only African museum sits right on Columbia Street in Old Town.
Yes, it used to be a house and now it's a museum.
Professor Chuck Ambers is the curator and executive director.
I finance this out of my own pocket.
And nestled in these walls is 6,000 years of African world history. In this room, we find a slice of African American history known as Juneteenth.
This involves an absolute equality of rights and the rights of property.
The words from Order Number 3 were read from a balcony in Galveston, Texas, somewhere between the 13th and 19th of June, 1865. That's when Union troops finally made it across the country to Texas, took over, and announced the total emancipation of the 250,000 slaves being held there. The news was met with celebration of freedom and the grief of struggle for years to come.
The slaves in the South, particularly in Texas, did not celebrate and really know about the Emancipation Proclamation, January the 1st, 1863. It wasn't until Juneteenth, 1865, that the Union Army got to Texas and liberated the slaves.
Professor Amber says the traditional celebration of Juneteenth included a party with a special menu of red velvet cake, red soda, grilled meat, and vegetables. The initial celebration was right in Galveston, Texas, 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation.
So that's why the Texans, African Americans in Texas, just celebrated, and they wanted that to be the African American Independence Day.
And speaking of which, it's for years been looked at as the African American Independence Day. But really, shouldn't it be regarded as America's Independence Day, since that's the day that everybody was free?
Technically, yeah, I would imagine so. But you have a situation, I don't know if I want to get into politics today, that's saying Black Lives Matter. And some people say all lives should matter, and they really should. But we're still having, 130 years later, we're still having a conflict with this one person, one vote. All men and women are created equal. We're still having a problem with that.
Amber says more than a century has gone by, and America is still working to live up to the creed of all people are created equal. Juneteenth is as much a celebration as it is a check of progress and renewed commitment to keep momentum moving forward. Jade Hindman, KPBS News.
Now, here's a look at what we are working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, moving closer to a trade war, how tariffs could hurt the economy. And on Midday Edition, healing the wounds of war with music. Meet the songwriter behind Rifles and Rosary Beads. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.